we have a key speakers joining in today. Ioannis Giannakakis, he is a Chief Legal Officer, Hellenic Post of Counsel to NK Law Firm. Can we have a big round of applause for him? And Wahyu Razak, Head Legal and Compliance, MOLADIN Finance. Can we have a big round of applause for him too? So over to you both. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So let's start. I think both of us already have presentation material, so let's start from our presentation. Perhaps it will be more meaningful for us to do the discussion. Do you mind to share the PPT? All right, sure.
So, first of all, I'm delighted to attend the conference. Although I traveled quite a bit to come to wonderful Kuala Lumpur, coming from Athens. And very brief introduction of who I am. My background is legal. I'm a corporate legal counsel, having worked in many companies, large companies, already for 30 years now. But during the last decade, I decided to follow my professional passion, which is digital law, data protection, and cybersecurity. So I deep dive into this area, and I was privileged enough to receive international recognition and be invited to attend many conferences around the world. So I'm very much delighted to be here with you, talking about the global cybersecurity landscape and the major threats. So one thing that comes to mind when we speak about cybersecurity is why does it matter to us so much? Why is cybersecurity so important? So the answer that comes to mind is that we're living in a digital world. Everything is or becomes virtual. So in this case, we need to protect our valuable data. As someone said, data is the new cash. So whoever controls the information has power in this era that we're living in. And the fact that cybersecurity refers to the protection of networks and software is quite critical for the protection and survival of the companies and organizations. How about the major cyber threats that have emerged in the last 5 years? What do you want to comment on this, or shall I proceed?
Just go ahead.
Okay.
Actually, I have some presentation just to share.
Okay, so that's fine. So we have identified the key cyber threats globally, and by cyber threats we mean the threats that emerge on a daily basis due to the sophistication of the technology that hackers are using. These cyber threats vary from the very sophisticated ransomware and malware that have been used recently in very famous hacks like the Colonial Pipeline hack in the United States. So one major pipeline in the United States has been hacked, and the hackers have gained access to the control room of the pipeline and disrupted the oil transfer in southeastern US. That caused a major business disruption for the company although they paid the ransom, which was around $5 million US dollars, or 4.4 if I remember correctly, the hack in all cases resulted to a major business disruption and loss of millions of dollars in damages for the company. So one thing is the sophistication and the development of the tools that hackers use, including AI and machine learning techniques. One other thing are the global events that happened during the last 2 years, like the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Also, we saw a major increase in hackers generated or suspected to originate from Russia. We have witnessed as well the increased use of work from home as a global practice due to the pandemic, and this immediately increased the attacks in devices that employees used working from home that were not VPN protected, so they were much more vulnerable to attacks. We have also witnessed the increased dependence of third-party vendors, which resulted to an increase of supply chain attacks globally, and the interdependence between cybersecurity and cloud. I would summarize this being the major cybersecurity threats originating in the last 3 to 5 years. So what can we do about it? What can organizations, companies, individuals do to protect their valuable information? First of all, from my perspective, apart from the deployment of modern tools like antivirus software and frequent testing of the vulnerabilities through a vulnerability assessment of your network information system, I would also focus very much on the training of the personnel. It's amazing nowadays that large companies and organizations, even active in technology, have practically cybersecurity illiterate personnel. So one of the key factors, as you all acknowledge, in allowing the hackers to gain access to your system by a stroke of a key is not being able to identify phishing emails. It's very, very easy to get fooled by a phishing emails stating that you have won something or something, a parcel is delayed and you have to click on a link in order to deliver faster your parcel, etc. So one major, let's say, mitigation measure would be the awareness training of the personnel, the deployment of the newest and state-of-the-art antivirus software. I'm talking now about large companies that invest in cybersecurity. Also the preparation, practical preparation of an incident response plan, as we call it, which is in practice the step-by-step, detailed and analytical plan to follow in case you happen to experience a successful cyber security attack. So it's good to have a plan, but not have it in the shelf. You have to practice it. You have to roll it out in your organization. you have to have a crisis management team in place in order to successfully and immediately mitigate the harm that is caused by a successful cyber attack, and being trained to manage the many, many implications that result from a cybersecurity attack. So, cybersecurity awareness, incident response plan, state-of-the-art technology are the major mitigation measures, and of course, cybersecurity compliance, as we say, which is the compliance by an acknowledged framework, like the NIST framework, the 27001 framework, that protect your information security network. So, Wahyu.
Okay, so if I may, to stand up, it's okay. Hi everyone. Been sit all the time, so I need to stand up a bit. Sorry. So actually, I do have some presentation just to make it more interactive with everyone. So, Ioannis, do you mind to care of venture or guess whether there's any messages, raise any concern from anyone in this room? So, does this message raise any concern? I mean, like, since we're talking about the cybersecurity one, right?
Yeah.
Venture to guess, everyone?
Typical phishing example.
Correct. On the right side, I guess you can see that basically if you have a bad credit, then it's okay. It's definitely lower your risk parameter as the financing company, right? Essentially, I came from the digital financing company, so basically this is like day-to-day activity for us to set up the risk parameter whenever we assess the potential debtor. On the left side, it's very generic. Essentially, when you get this message from your bank provider, you simply just ignore it because this is not your bank provider that sent the message, because it's too generic. You need to be very specialized to your end, right? Okay, next. Since this is like a legal forum, so let's start with the legalese first. I think from the very earliest of the, I would say identity theft or fraud that, let's just put it in reference, I guess this is from the States, identity theft and the assumption they transact. This is one of the very earliest that I could find about specifically on the identity theft. There's some very detailed information about the fraud identification, credit card fraud, and etc., etc. So I think this is one of the earliest reference that we could find on the cybersecurity matters, yeah, with the criminal sanction. Next. This is from my country. I'm from Indonesia. Essentially, we don't have dedicated one cybersecurity law that having this criminal penalty, not yet, but we do have in various laws and regulations. So we do have, I'm just gonna briefly talk to you about it. So basically we do have our own Dutch-based law, our Indonesia Criminal Code. Essentially this governs all the theft in general. And then after that, we also have our own banking regulations as well. You know about the banking confidential information, etc. We do have our own penal provisions as well. And then afterwards, if you intercept any telecommunication, you are also subject to the penal sanction. And the last one, the recent one, is the law number 11 of 2008 as being amended last year. And I guess this is one of the very recent regulation in Indonesia as well that treat very severe on the electronic system transmission. On the bottom one, this is on the financial institution side. Since I'm from the digital financing, we are under the Indonesia FSA, Financial Service Authority, OJK we call it. So this is one of the unique provisions because this national legislation introduced the international standard. Essentially, we don't have this international standard in the regulation. Ioannis, I think, just mentioned about the ISO 27001, right? This is mandatory in our national legislation for the financial lending business. So I guess our government trying to cope up with the advancement of the technology. So we govern this, number 1, number 2, and number 3, and the last one will be on the ISO about the biometric verification. This is one of the important thing that I want to discuss later on. Next. Let's talk about data from the industry database. I guess the financial technology, fintech, peer-to-peer lending in Indonesia is very robust. I mean, like the funding even reached 677 trillion rupiah. I guess it's around more than 200 million US dollar, yeah, for this one. So it's very promising business in Indonesia right now. And if you can see, more than 120 million users. Essentially, our citizen 250 million. So 1 out of 2 person in Indonesia enjoy this facility, Ioannis, for this fintech peer-to-peer lending.
Amazing.
Yes, next. This is from the demographic wise. Quite shocking revelation anyway, because one of the victims of the scammer, the first example that I mentioned, came from teachers as a profession. The question would be how come, for instance, from the layoff or the unemployment base, they tend to lower compare with the teachers, because teachers seems to be more gullible, yeah, to get this scammer. I'm stating this as a fact. This is based on the independent poll from Indonesia. And suddenly, yesterday, I tried to do some quick research, and I found that in Malaysia, I guess anyone can speak to it about it, teachers are among the top victims who fall for the scammers as well, said by the Johor police chief. So I don't know, can anyone talk to me about it? But essentially that's the fact, yeah, about the online loans or the peer-to-peer lending side. Next. This is based on the National Complaint Database in financial institution under the OJK. 2020 to 2022, say 2 years lah. This industry is quite young, started in 2016, but the past 2 years, if you can see the external fraud about the identity theft has risen 15%, only like for the past 2 years. I think this is something quite concerning from the government standpoint as well. So that's why, just like I mentioned earlier, they regulated about this ISO standard in the national legislation. This is brand new in Indonesia anyway. Next. This is moving, yeah? All right. Looking good. I'm really vision person, so I need to see something to do. Okay, so basically on the left side is Shopee, one of the e-commerce in Indonesia, and I believe in other Southeast Asia region as well. They do have this new biometric verification. You can see during the moving image, yeah. On the top right, this is the market standard. Whenever they want to do the fintech lending, whenever they do have the prospective customer application form, usually they provide the digital base. It's in the application or on the website, and then afterwards they do OCR. So essentially, one of the burning questions in Indonesia is about there's no dedicated single national database, Ioannis. So it's very difficult for us to define which is the accurate ID for a specific person. So that's why we use this OCR, and then afterward we do the identity and document verification. That's why there is a biometric verification. Perhaps if anyone use Shopee, you can see that you need to do selfie and then move your head to the left, to the right, up and down, just to make sure that you meet the liveness detection requirement. So essentially, this is one of the market standard in order to cope with identity fraud that's quite concerning from the laws and regulation in Indonesia. I guess this is my last slide. I don't need to run through on the left side, right? Because you can see from the overview that basically you need to do liveness verification, you need to insert your OTP and etc. Do you care to comment, Ioannis, about the way in Indonesia?
No, first of all, I think it's a very, very, very interesting presentation and collection of data, and very new data, raw data, I would say. That's really, really interesting. Very well done. And on the biometric, just a comment, because in Europe and the countries that are subject to the GDPR, biometric technology is heavily scrutinized, especially in the last 3 years. Companies are increasingly avoiding to use biometric techniques, and regulators, of course, as you mentioned, there is a new ISO 30107 related to biometric authenticity and compliance, especially the use of fingerprints or facial recognition in malls or airports or places where we have many people moving in enclosed spaces, have been very, very heavily scrutinized. There were many complaints filed with the European Courts of Justice, and the regulators increasingly ask for what we call data protection impact assessment on the use of biometrics, which is a risk assessment, as you know, in order to mitigate the risk.
And you need to submit to the regulator, the DPIA.
Exactly,
understand?
prior to deploying your biometric authentication system. Also, there is a provision in the GDPR called privacy by design and security by design, which requires for the privacy-enhancing techniques, what we call PET technology, in order to protect application using biometric technology. These two are the major, let's say, legislation requirements in Europe related to the deployment of biometric technology.
See, I understand. Thank you so much for sharing. Because I think we're very young in terms of the regime of the regulations. Essentially, we haven't established our own PDP commission, Personal Data Protection Commission. So we haven't established it yet. I mean, like compared with the GDPR, of course. So I guess we're still trying to manage which standard that we would like to implement, compare with the GDPR, with say PDPA from Singapore, Malaysia, and anyone else. So hopefully by this 2024, we do have our own commission just to review our DPIA, for instance, or just to review the privacy by design, etc.
But it's definitely moving to the right direction, I say.
Understand, thank you. Let's just open to...
Yes, absolutely. Any questions, comments?
Thank you. I have one question. Maybe it's a little bit broad. I tried to narrow it. And so first I'll share my concerns. And so then try to formulate the question that I really want to ask. So my concern is about frauds in biometrical tags. I mean that for recent years, the IE, the tag has developed to the extent that the program can copy your voice at least you still can recognize, especially if you're speaking with a friend, that okay, maybe it's not a friend if it is your close friend. But when we're talking about colleagues, about banks and etc., so the voices are very, sounds really similar. So we have these scandals in Europe recently when prankers, but some people and majority of people think, and I understand why, that these prankers are not prankers, but in fact hackers who are working for the intelligence. So, when they call to the politicians, introduce themselves as other politicians, who these first ones are connecting, and recording, asking questions, and then recording the answers, and then publishing them. So it's in Europe it was a scandal not because the answers, because like there was nothing harmful in them, but it's a large concern that it may be worse in several years. Then another example is deepfakes, when artificial intelligence now can copy even your face, like the recent case with Taylor Swift. And what I mean that fraudsters cannot only steal like everything from prospective victim, but also ruin the reputation of this victim. And so maybe you share your thoughts. How do you think what next steps should be made in a cybersecurity just to protect people, to protect people's data, just to avoid these situations when you cannot prove that you are who you are, and the person who, for instance, on the tape recorded is not in fact you. So maybe you can share your thoughts.
Thank you for sharing your concern, and I think it's very relevant. And unfortunately, deepfakes, as using AI and machine learning techniques, as I mentioned earlier, has not yet been able to effectively find a mitigation, an efficient mitigation measure by the multiple, let's say, organization or even state authorities. In fact, out of my own experience, I'm the data protection officer for a government authority in Greece, a ministry that is dealing with mitigation and asylum. And Greece, as you know, welcomes thousands of refugees coming mainly from Turkey, but also from Syria and other countries. So recently, this government authority has been the victim of a major hack, and the hackers used deep fakes to imitate the images of certain refugees that actually were members of ISIS and other terrorist groups moving from Greece to the European Union. So they actually changed the faces and the voices of these people in order to hide them. This is a very recent real-life example of what you just mentioned. And no matter how sophisticated the defensive, as I call it, measures have been, there was no antidote to these deepfake attacks. So I believe that this is work in progress. The use of generative AI is a solution in order to identify the deepfakes, because deepfakes can be identified by AI tools. Unfortunately, the research in this field is very, very new and recent and has not come up yet with solutions that can be widely adopted. I believe it's a matter of time, and in less than 1 year, we will have some tools that can effectively identify and cope with the fakes. But now, as we speak, that's a real problem. What do you want to comment?
That's really thoughtful. Thank you, Ioannis. So I think my next presentation will delve more into on that angle, because essentially this is much more on the anti-money laundering and counter financing terrorism, those kind of things, because that's one of the thing that Indonesia battle in right now, because we do have certain parameters. So that's why we need to ensure that this is the right person that enters in Indonesia. There's no direct, indirect relationship with any blacklist name or database from the Interpol and etc. So yeah, I think there will be much. Thank you, Ioannis.
Yeah, the authentication process should be the one that is the critical in this case. So, any other? Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you for that insightful session. It really added a lot for us. I just have, it's not question as just inquiry from your perspective. The dark internet or the deep internet or the dark web, I don't know what they call it. The inquiry is, did we witness any cases related to those things? Because I understand that most of those regulations just to curb the fraud and the illegal practice and all of these things. So this is the roots upon which we are relying on regulating those illegal activities. So on the other hand, we've been hearing about that type of the web. So I think it will be very insightful for us if we hear from you. Have you witnessed such cases? And if yes, what would be the consequences for that one? Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, I have, during the last decade, I have witnessed many cases where professional hackers have uploaded stolen data in the dark web. Either they sell it, especially health data, which are the most expensive data to sell, or social security related other type of sensitive personal data, like for instance trade union memberships or the stuff. And it's very, very hard to defend yourself if your data are being uploaded on the dark web. If you try to take down a domain on the dark web, it's like a snake. You cut one head, but immediately two others come up. So there is no, to my knowledge, to the best of my knowledge, there is no efficient way to take down a dark web domain with data. Usually, what the hackers do, especially the ones using ransom, they threat that they will upload your data on the dark web if you don't pay the ransom. Of course, even if you pay the ransom, you have no guarantee that this will not happen. So my advice would be not to pay. It's better to cope with all the negative, let's say, consequences of successful cyber attacks than to lose money and not be protected on the other hand. So dark web is a reality, unfortunately. Most of the sophisticated hackers have access to dark web, and they materialize their threats, upload the data on the dark web, and it's very, very hard then to defend yourself, as I said.
Any recommendation for us, for the normal people, to protect themselves from being hacked from that? Or just enough if I did not use it or approach it, that's more than enough for me?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can approach the dark web. It's not that difficult, but on your question, how to protect yourself, I would say get alerted on the scam and the phishing email techniques, because 78% of cyber attack initiate through phishing email or social engineering.
Oh, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Do we have any more questions for the session? All right, so thank you so much, Wahyu. Thank you, Ioannis, for joining for the wonderful session, Cybersecurity, Risk and Compliance to Study the Global Landscape. Can we have a big round of applause for the key speakers?
So first we have Wahyu Razak. Please give us a huge round of applause, guys. Next one we have Ioannis. Come on guys, huge round of applause for Ioannis.